January 20th.
Yeah,
That's Trump's inauguration.
yeah.
You're gonna do the horror chart for it.
Because it's Donald Trump, we're going to take another look at from his standpoint, what he's going to go into and what we can pretty well expect from that. He has 29 degrees Leo rising, and Mars is right on that point. And so when you see Mars on the first house, that person in a fire sign is usually very bombastic and very, very strong in their approach. And they'll do anything, and it's in Leo, so it's a showmanship. So everything Donald Trump was saying during the election, you can wipe that out, because it's not really all that. However, he did wake us up and say, whoa. So a lot of the ramifications that he threw forth, we're going to, as a nation, we're going to say, no, you were wrong here. And I don't know if you've noticed it a lot, but a lot of the advertising is making us aware that we don't, all this bigotry is something that we need to say, wait a minute, they're right, this is not true. Bigotry is, it's a falsehood, it's not really real. And so this, I think, one of the good things has come out of all that vitriol that came out of his face during the campaign, because the campaign person is not the person who's going into presidency. The biggest thing is that when he's sworn in, there's some problems. So I'm going to put, this is the chart we're looking at. Here's a man who's very powerfully engrossed with himself, who thinks that he knows all there is to know about anything there is to know about it. P&E means prenatal eclipse. And it's a sun point just before it is. They use the sun and the moon. So when I look at something like this, it happens every 18 years. But by 2020, this P&E happens for him. There's an eclipse right on that sun point. And so a lot of astrologers are predicting that if he's going to get hit by anything, it'll be then. Well, I don't think so, because it's happened every 20 years, every 18 to 19 years, and he hasn't had anything go wrong yet. So. Except lawsuits, and lawsuits are part of business for the most part. But here you're seeing a lot of stuff going on here in his chart. But the process of all these planets in the 12th is a lot of the reasons why he wouldn't tell us, and why he still isn't, because he's keeping it a secret. That's what this is. He's shooting himself in the foot by going, well, I'll tell you next week. Well, I meant the week after that. No. It was them who said it would be. But this is what this is. So he needs to hide. He needs to hide things. This is very insecure. So he has to prove how secure he is through his insecurities. So this is why he's as big as he is and what he's done. There's no real process here for pure wealth. But this is a good point to notice. And 18 Gemini is right about mid-June. So keep that in mind. So if anything happens to Trump during mid-June, over that point, it'll tell you something, especially 2020, because that's when he's going to decide probably to run again. So we'll see what happens here. Okay, now what are we interested in is the fact that what's going on during this period. Well, he's inherited a bunch of things that are rather interesting. First of all, he's inherited a Taurus ascendant, which is up here, which gives him his presidency. But over here, we're going to see Mars in Pisces, and we're going to see Venus in Pisces. We're going to see Neptune, which is some kind of a deceit process, in Pisces, and the South Node is going to be in Pisces. All of these things are in the 8th house, Pisces. Well, we got to look at that. But the biggest thing I'm interested in more than anything else is that Saturn is going to be going over that point during the inauguration. A lot of astrologers are thinking that this is going to be a bad luck omen, because the South Node is like standing in a hole about this deep. Hard to jump out of a hole, you have to climb out of it. So here's that part and parcel. And looking at the Saturn on the moon, this says that self-control is the most important thing in this chart. So we have all this 8th house planets, and they're resonating with this 12th house Mercury Saturn, and they're working that, just squaring off that sun, so we're going to see something about that. And this particular point is telling us that all of these Pisces planets are softening his chart. It's a water, he's watering it down. So you're going to see a lot of change and a lot of shifting in what's going on. What he said here, he doesn't necessarily mean here. So you're going to see this. And this is the hardest part right here to go through. Any of you who have gone through this position in your life, and you have, with the Saturn transits your moon, you hit a depression that's beyond belief. And it is not a good one. Yeah.
I have a question I don't at all know the answer to at all. When you're born under an eclipse, and then, you know, there's something you don't see clearly, right, with an eclipse, and then Saturn comes there and is making an aspect, it's drawing all
that
tension,
energy.
so he's going to have to look at things maybe that he hasn't, I mean, maybe the last time this happened, maybe you looked at it, but
What does Saturn say, basically?
organize,
Organizing, right? Also says
Restriction.
a lot of constriction.
bring
He
it
has-
down.
He has no idea how much restriction he's looking at. It's all talk right now. He has no idea. When he starts getting briefed, he'll get a big idea. And that's what Saturn's gonna do to this chart, because it's in the 12th house in detriment. So transiting over here in Sag, it has to balance a little bit. So what we're looking at is a guy who needs to exercise a great deal of self-control, and this is telling him he has to, and we will see it as he has to. And we will see shifts and changes and other things that he's gonna do. A lot of talk, a lot of bullshit, but all of the soft planets in the 8th house is going to do exactly that. It is softening down this whole chart, because Pisces is a water sign, and what does water signs do? They pray to God. I would almost bet that if we could talk to Trump on an open and honest relationship without anybody knowing what we talked about, he would probably tell you he regretted winning the damn election. Because I don't think he's gonna, this is not fun. This is hell on wheels. And so that could be extremely detrimental to his health. Why? Because look what rules his health.
Saturn.
And it's going over his moon. What's in Cancer? So he's got a lot to look at. So there's health issues that we don't know about, that we might be seeing being activated with this eclipse. People born on an eclipse are destined to be something. There's a need for them to do what they do. And they usually get themselves placed in prominence. And you'll see eclipses work this way, if you live through that birth.
So when he's inaugurated and it's under this influence, and this kind of says how the 4 years is going to go, what makes you think that he would possibly run again if it's this much heaviness and restriction for him in the 4 years?
Good question, yeah.
Now,
His ego?
I'm looking at
He
this,
wants
I'm
to
looking
do
at this
that.
very powerful ego here. I'm looking at somebody who, if at the end of the first 4-year term isn't quite settled the way he wants it to be, there may be that second run. There's an old saying about absolute power. It corrupts, absolutely. And this guy is not out of that wood. He's very much into the power trip and what he's doing.
What degree is his Saturn at? His natal Saturn?
23 Cancer, and that Venus is 25.
So we're going to have Pluto oppose that in a few years, which you have to use because he's a public figure. And it's going to tie in that house of ill health and the 12th.
Yeah, it's all tying up. So all these Cancer things over here in the 12th house is suggesting some kind of confinement, hospitalization, maybe one of them. But if it follows straightly on this position here and over here, that's a rude awakening. Suddenly the powerful man isn't as powerful as he thought he was. And this is what he's going to have to contend with. You know, you can't send an atomic bomb over there unless their bomb is about 10 miles above our surface. We have to intercept it and then send one. So you just don't automatically, let's send a bomb. You can't. There's so many checks and balances that are going on in our government. It's unbelievable. That's why nothing really ever gets done over here, because there's so many checks and balances. And even though the Republicans get a full swing right now, they're not all in accord with themselves. So you get some more of that. So different ways, different structure. But this whole process is something that I think it's a softening down of what this guy's all about. Yeah.
Would you also look at when that Pluto thing happens, that Saturn opposing his Mars, besides anger, it's going to possibly change his belief system about money and the people's money, taxes, people's taxes?
We're supposed to get a better tax rate and things like that. How, I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, it would have something to that. I will say this, if you're in the stock market, stay in it for a couple of years. This is a house here that very little control happens. And under that 8th house influence, which is a death house, Pisces, saying that this has got to be seen and recognized. So this Saturn is playing a major role that's coming up. It's on his eclipse, and he had a hell of a childhood coming in, and this is a new childhood. But he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So it's going to be an interesting point. But this to me says a lot. The South Node, you got to climb out of this hole, and he's in one. So we'll see what he's going to do with it. Okay? Chart time is his date of birth,
Okay,
and inauguration is always noon on
okay.
January 20th.